When the second child was a little older, Magda could not wait to restart with her interests she considered vital. Continuously preaching to me on a daily basis, she repeated, "We must spend more time with our witnessing duties, going house to house and pleasing our Father Jehovah, and that must be our priority." It was clearly obvious that I could not please her even if I followed a belief system as dictated by her witness brothers. It would never work, for she preferred to have all kinds of excuse to belittle me, or try to make me feel embarrassed in front of her elite friends. Was it to please them? Was it due to the popular belief that all men are thoughtless? I could not be sure whether it was what she had been brought up with, or could not be stirred even when she treated me like a toddler. "Did you say thank you?" Or, "You must respect them when they speak to you." If I dared to say something about this issue, her reaction would always be, "Respect must be earned." Obviously, they have all earned her respect. My marriage was on shaky grounds right from the beginning, and I was prepared for any surprises. My patience remained like a stubborn donkey's, and I was ready for Magda to make the first move, just like in a game of chess. In the meantime, I hoped that the whole experience was a passing dream, or ugly nightmare I would wake up from, and that painful feeling would be no more. In a diary I wrote, "Oftentimes you cry, oftentimes you laugh, sometimes asking, why? Often you try, at times you fail, sometimes you walk, sometimes you could fly. Seasons come and go, time becomes a river. Your pasts and tomorrow all become a mighty now. You keep flowing and keep on trying. So distant, yet so near. What has passed you by? A life of dreams flies, subjected to many lies. That is what it seems, a life of endless dreams. Look at them again, now with an open mind. Live your life, be true. To you, be kind. Enjoy your nows, and live it through." When BJD Electronics was struggling in the harsh climate of the then economics, Ben decided to dismiss a number of people. That is when I decided to display a variety of my paintings and sculptures semi-permanently in a department store, also struggling to survive. We elected to put my paintings amongst the colorful materials in the curtain and soft furnishings department on the top floor of an old Victorian building close to Meyer Melbourne stores. Interestingly, some people employed in their furniture department showed great interest in them. They were willing to buy my works in bulk. It sounded great, and I was very happy to see my works being displayed in their stores. For me, it was better to sell them a little cheaper than waiting for a long period of time for far better prices. They displayed them in their furniture and bedding departments, as well as distributing them to other states, like New South Wales, Brisbane, and Perth. But their sale prices were a lot higher than what I had been paid. Some people considered it a very silly thing to do on my part. However, this venture could be profitable, for my name to become known amongst art lovers. When I visited Perth later, discovering my paintings at Myers, which was then known as Bones, I inquired if I could supply them with my paintings directly, and was told that I should approach their office in Melbourne even if I lived in WA. This reminds me of a certain gentleman collecting old artifacts from the seafloor along the coastal areas of Victoria, who was keen to have a painting depicting the ancient Loch Ard disaster, not far from the famous 12 Apostles in this part of the world. That was one of my first assignments in Australia. It depicted a huge storm lashing the coast and the tragic end of a great ship. I felt this encouraged Magda to try her hands at painting again, and with my help she began to express herself in acrylics. Soon after, a married couple asked me to paint a large painting representing ancient Egypt, a felucca taking the pharaoh to his final destination as the olden artists painted in their temples, under the directions of the priesthood. I went to their home to see where they wanted to have this work done, and once we had decided what size it needed to be, I made a few creative suggestions, one of which I implemented. I utilized some cement and small pebbles to create an embossed work of art, and painted over it, which really looked so real and was three-dimensional. However, when the department store next to Myers had to close their doors, after being in business for many years, I decided to display my works in different venues. 388 Collins Street is a magnificent Gothic building. It is occupied by the ANZ Bank and is a very beautiful edifice. When they accepted having my paintings displayed in their bank chambers, I was excited about the prospect of a successful exhibition. I had a large number of paintings and displayed them for a long while, creating great interest. If I did not sell anything, I would still consider it a success, for many people were introduced to my paintings, but having sold several was great encouragement. However, spending more time in artistic and business interests was unappealing to Magda. I was apparently becoming too materialistic for her liking. I certainly met interesting people during this period, from the days of selling encyclopedias, including World Book ones, to selling real estate, to electronics testing, and coffee shop development, as well as exhibiting my paintings. Almost all of them have become my friends. Some of them were from an academic background, others were doctors and businessmen, still others had interests in philosophy, and some were into occult exploration. Discovering that there was a different world out there, other than the world which existed with Magda, was a great delight. It was now time to discover the eastern side of Melbourne. I specifically desired to move into St. Kilda, Brighton, or even somewhere along the Mornington Peninsula, but a number of people attempted to oppose my decision. They spoke in terms of crime and prostitution being ripe in that area of the city, and that the western suburbs were the best. But my research decried otherwise. Under no circumstances was I able to encourage Magda to move into the split-level house I bought through A.V. Jennings, for she was absolutely adamant in her decision that she simply did not like it and preferred that we keep renting. Admittedly, I am unsure if she understood me. I contemplated selling the house and perhaps even start living in the Toorak area. There was a delightful house on Bruce Street. It was a two-story hacienda-style building. Bearing in mind the possible circumstances in regard to my alleged family, the best choice for me was to live my life behind closed doors, living a life completely in secrecy, hidden away in a pod, removed from the rest of the real world. Even under all those circumstances, I loved my family. I sacrificed my time, my efforts and creativity to make sure their health and well-being was always prioritized. However, I could not force Magda to love or accept me as I was. I left it to her, for she was also a free agent. But she primarily chose to please the witnesses with all her might, and did not want to be materialistic. She certainly earned my respect. Respect must be earned. While all this was happening, I discovered a few budding artists trying to sell their works door to door. One day I decided to visit where they were based to learn a little more about their operations. I hoped that maybe we could all combine our efforts and turn it into a profitable business. If it worked, it would help those artists to build themselves up financially, while also helping to sell my works. One of my creative suggestions was to start a scheme in which we could rent our paintings to offices in the city. This would provide some income to the young and unknown artists, while creating beautiful color in those normally bleak-looking office interiors. Some considered it to be a brilliant idea with profitable potential. A few decided to open a shop in Chapel Street, Purane. It was going to be the center of operations. Local artists would be able to bring in their works and display them in an almost permanent exhibition. There were going to be door-to-door salespeople employed to promote those works of art, and there were many young people who looked for clean and not so tiring jobs, or to fill seasonal holiday employment. I was to become the resident artist and in charge of the artistic side of the business. I decided to create works of art by the window so that every shopper could stop and enjoy the workings of an artist. A little later, I was in partnership with this new business. We were generating a reasonably good income by simply being there, and it was helping other local artists. We employed a young gentleman to create pen, pencil, and charcoal drawings, but he preferred to continue only with pen and ink illustrations. A short period passed, and I started offering lessons in drawing and painting to interested people and those who had never attempted to do anything before, helping them discover their own inner artist. We called the gallery and shop Artistic Decor, facing the town hall. One partner was involved in an escort service on St. Kilda Road. They had a number of happy girls employed there, and one day they asked me to paint portraits of the girls working for them. When I visited that business for the first time, I discovered that all the girls were interested in fame, and having their portraits painted was exciting them greatly. But I was determined to have no other closeness with any of them other than paint their images. It seemed I surprised a few people by being in complete control. This was also an experience I have never shared with Magda, for fear of hurting her, as she was showing signs of extreme jealousy. Another time, as I remember so clearly, when I was painting a very ancient Australian dunny on a largish canvas with a farmland setting, complete with a number of sheep in the distance. People passing by were making interesting comments. As usual, next to my easel, I had a piece of wooden board I used to clean my brushes on. I also had a few other easels with canvases on them, and I used to paint any of them as I pleased, depending on my mood. A newly married couple admired my works, along with those other local artists' paintings. The gentleman approached me, asking to stop with the painting I was working on and sign it, and that they would collect it in the morning. They were very certain about what they wanted and would pay for it as long as it was not too expensive, for they were just starting out. He was a lawyer. I could not decide a price of my work, and we were going to do that the next day. In the morning, at 9, the said gentleman arrived quite excited about the painting he wanted to purchase, but he was disappointed, as he could not see it. I showed the image of the Outback Dunny, and had even signed it. He told me this was not the work he was after, for he wanted to have the other beautiful work which stood next to my painting, which was leaning against the wall. When I picked up my cleaning board with multiple colors, seeing it, he shouted in excitement, "That is my painting! I am so happy you did not sell it to somebody else. But you didn't sign it yet." I signed it, and very seriously gave him the work which had excited them. When he inquired what price I thought of asking, I requested him to make a suggestion. He offered me $500 in a very shy manner, and told me, "I hope this will be enough. I really love this painting." I did not think even a cleaning board could be worth anything. Beauty is indeed in the eyes of the beholder. I hope even now that it has provided them with some joy and meaning. When we at Artistic Decor decided to have an opening event with a special exhibition of select works of art, with a traditional wine and cheese presentation, I made mention of it to Magda, but she did not want to have anything to do with the worldly people. However, soon after, she consulted her only friends, the witnesses, and decided to follow me, as there was no harm in it, organizing her friends to babysit our children that evening. The premier made an opening speech, and guests and other dignitaries viewed our works of art. I received praise, and during the wine and cheese cocktail party, newspaper reporters took lots of photographs. Magda and a few fellow artists, together with my images, were prominently displayed in the next days, as well as weekly papers. Unfortunately, once again, one of the reporters named me differently than my own name, causing much light-hearted banter. When Magda became aware of her images being printed in the papers, she was not unhappy, but as she repeatedly said, she hoped she did not cause any impression of being interested in worldliness. I hoped her dearest brothers would eventually calm her down. On the front page of the popularly known tabloid Turok Times, there was a portrait of Rudolf Nureyev when he was visiting Australia, and inside our images of the opening night were displayed. The images were large. This printing led the way for Mr. Nureyev to have his portrait drawn by me. Then he was going to treasure it. I remember the wise words of Jackson Browne. Opportunity dances with those who are already on the dance floor. One other time they nominated me to represent Artistic Decor on television. Hearing this, Magda became quite excited, but reminded me that we should avoid becoming too worldly. However, she was happy to capture the images from the television at her witness brother's home. And if they knew how to do it, she might even have the sound recorded on cassette. It looked very promising. I was unsure whether it was because I made mention of how I would like to record that occasion, or was it because she wanted to have a memory of the event, so that she could send it to her parents in Germany, or was it on advice of her brothers in faith? For somebody who could not stand electronics It was an unexpected surprise. I had made a very creative suggestion to my partners at Artistic Decor. I was going to paint a large oil portrait of the presenter of the morning program on Channel O, as it was then known, which later became Network 10. Daily programs were still presented in black and white, although a small number of people had color televisions and some programs were streaming in color. I painted that portrait in sepia tones, thus making his blue eyes look light brown. I presented artistic decor in a promotional way, and the art classes we provided, giving a chance to young artists to display their art and assist them in selling their works. Then I spoke a little about myself as an international artist, and presented the portrait as a gift from me, as well as on behalf of the company I was representing. The interview created great interest and attracted more people and more profit for the young artists displaying their works. The presenter mentioned he wished that everybody was watching the program in color, for the portrait was stunning, and he could not contain his excitement. Only one thing made him more surprised. He told the audience that his eyes had become brown in the portrait, and said he always wished to have brown eyes. This program was repeated several times. Magda had taken a few still pictures off the television screen when I appeared and presented the portrait during the program. Later she told me how everybody was so excited seeing me on the screen. Probably Magda was also equally excited about it, but she never mentioned it. However, much later she told me that it may have been fine to appear on television, yet one should never forget that it was still the devil's tool. We should not lose our heads over it, and not expose ourselves too much, for fame is an evil thing, she would often repeat. Everybody appearing on television had makeup applied, but I preferred not to have it on my face. However, the makeup artists insisted that to eliminate the shine from the studio lights, it was important to apply a little powder on every participant's face. I did not have a beard then, and I had a head of large curls. Many people tried to contact me afterwards, and there were offers for me to take part in some of the soapies on television, as well as appear in commercials. I remained involved with my academic tutoring in behavioral psychology, and many of my friends and students at the university were very excited about my appearance on television. For a long time they spoke about it. During this period, I was also involved in solo and choir singing with several groups, including the Victorian Liedertafel. We were befriended with a Canadian couple involved with artistic decor, who invited us to their home for a meal, but afterwards the husband asked me why our daughter was constantly swinging her legs under the dinner table and kicking his knees. I apologized and suggested that next time we would make sure the child sat elsewhere. I told him that he should have told me then and there, instead of suffering such childish nonsense, and he was calmed. I continued with my association with them for a while longer, until one day they had organized yet another opening for an exhibition event together with wine and cheese. As the evening advanced, he suddenly asked me to follow him outside, and fiercely rebuked me, saying, what was it that I was talking about in regard to their background? I was shocked, and wondered what it was that I had supposedly spoken about. There was obviously somebody who did not like me around, and created a lie about me having said whatever it was. Even now, I have not discovered what it was that I apparently upset them with. I wondered how a good friend could react the way he did.